Hello, I'm Oriana Fox. Thank you for tuning in to Multiple O's, the spin-off podcast for my talk show, The O Show. The O Show is a live performance piece that mines the conventions of daytime TV talk shows for all that they're worth. It features artists and other experts who have no difficulty spilling the beans about their lives and opinions, especially when they defy norms and conventions. So if you're interested in candid confessions, nonconformity, creativity, and mental health, you've come to the right place. This episode contains adult themes. My guest mentions sexual assault and suicide, so listener discretion is advised.
So nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Right, an expat. How long have you been overseas?
20 years.
Oh, wow. Oh, cool.
Yeah, a long time.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, but I'm originally from New York.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've always wanted to go to, like, the UK, but I don't know. We'll see. No, it's like, after last year, it's like, I'm fine at my couch. I'll make it. It's fine.
But yeah, so things are opening up in New York now, right?
Yeah, comedy clubs are open. They're only allowed 33% capacity, but still, I mean, compared to Zoom shows, it's night and day. So yeah, you don't have to, play around with like dogs barking and babies crying, and so
yeah.
God, it's been crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think everyone, like, every time they go to work, they think, man, I would love to just work from home. And then this happens. You're like, well, maybe, put a pin in that. And
yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. So you've been doing comedy. Have you been doing comedy on Zoom? Like,
yeah. They really try. And it's weird because, I mean, some places they'll tell the audience to turn their microphones off. So you're talking, you have no idea what's going on, if people are laughing or not, because everyone's microphones are off, most of their cameras are off. So you're basically just talking to yourself the whole time. It's insane.
I know exactly what that's like, because I teach art history, so I'm just like, I know what that's like,
right?
To be talking. You just feel like I could just start singing because nobody, like, it doesn't feel like you're talking to anyone. Like, supposedly students are there,
right,
but they're not turning their cameras on, and they're not,
right.
They should be, but they're not.
They're so entrenched in the Renaissance works that they're silent. It's amazing.
Yeah, no, I don't teach that far back. It's like modernism to present. So. But yeah, they're deep into their Picassos by Van Gogh.
Right. That's cool, though. That's cool.
But anyway, so I normally read like an introduction, and I struggled to write an introduction for you, I must say.
Nothing will offend me, and I'll whatever. It'll give us something to talk about. Well, I actually ended up giving up, and I just was going to read what you have on your website because. Good. Which by the way has a typo this whole time, and I'm looking at like when is my manager going to like, it always, there's a typo in it. It says like she has.
Is there? I didn't notice it.
She has performs regularly or something like that, and I'm like,
oh yeah, I think I did notice it actually, but not this time, but previous times. Right. I think it's because it's towards the end of the day here. It's like 8:00, so, and I've been to a children's birthday party this afternoon, so I'm like,
hosting or
just.
Or what are you, a clown?
Just
are you a part-time? Are you a part-time balloon artist?
Clown, no. It was just like, some friends, but
oh, cool.
I just feel like I had too much cake and like Prosecco, and it was just, why did I do that? I should not have gone there today. Right. So, okay, you think that would give me some courage? It's not.
Cake doesn't.
I'll just go ahead.
Okay.
So, like I said, I'm just going to read what it says on your website, and then I'll read you my alternative. Maybe, if I get the courage. So,
Jay is. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to make up it. Jay is a somewhat almost average looking person. She has. I don't know. She's, okay. Some people find her funny.
That's good. Okay, so I'm speaking today with Jaye McBride, a very funny, smart, and proudly transgender woman. Night after night, when the bars and clubs are open, that is, she gets up in front of a crowd and outs herself. That isn't what you say on your website, by the way. This is my own writing I'm reading now. As a surprise to myself. Okay, so night after night, when the bars are open, bars and clubs are open, that is, she gets up in front of a crowd and outs herself, making jokes out of the experience of being trans and making fun of the expectations and stereotypes of that identity position. She's a woman who has balls. I mean, she doesn't want to talk about whether or not she has balls. But I mean in the proverbial sense. She really does have way more guts than I do. She makes jokes about that sort of thing, and has traveled the world performing stand-up comedy as a headliner and sharing the stage with comedy greats. I'm not going to list the names, but yeah, great ones. And in addition to stand-up, Jaye has written, produced, and acted in a variety of short films. When not performing on stage or on screen, Jaye writes the comedy blog for Times Union and speaks at colleges all across the United States with her lecture about being transgender. So, having transitioned in 2007, Jaye is uniquely qualified to talk about awkward first dates, strained family relationships, and self-acceptance. So, yeah, self-acceptance is a key kind of theme of my talk show.
Cool. I didn't want to interrupt. I didn't want to interrupt the whole time. I'm like, do I interrupt or do I let it go? So I just let it go. I figured that's like, well, you look like awkward, so I'm going to let you keep going. You look like you're really, really struggling, and you're like partially embarrassed, partially stuck, and you're already halfway there, so you have to finish it, So I was like, I'll just let it go. I'll see what happens.
What did you want to say? Did you want to interrupt?
Nothing. No, I was just going to say, yeah, keep going. You're doing great. I was going to cheer you on because it was, yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that update is old. So, or that bio that you read off my website's old. So,
it's old. Yeah. Okay, but tell me the new stuff. I can always redo it later.
Nothing.
Or I can add the new stuff now.
Nothing. It's all boring. It's just worse.
She's done a TED Talk that's had, I wanted to say she's done a TED Talk that's had like 14,000 views. I mean, I'm impressed by that. I think that's a good number.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was. I thought it was more than that. I also had a little clip on
Maybe it's more than that.
Yeah. And I was on Comedy Central.
The number
In 2019, I was on Comedy Central, and I had a clip that played like 100,000 times or something. So which is, pretty cool. My TED Talk, though, I still more people recognize me from that. So I don't know, like people shared it through different media outlets than YouTube, but it's pretty cool. I called it...
That is cool.
I think it's like really interesting. I called it Trans 102, The Chamber of Secrets. And I love that there's a J.K. Rowling reference in it now built in from 10 years ago. I think that's... Or 5 years ago. It's perfect.
So was it before all the J.K. Rowling stuff went down that you called it that?
Yeah, I think it was before Dumbledore came out of the closet.
I didn't realize that it was...
Yeah.
Whoa, that is...
Dumbledore was straight. That's how long ago it was. No, I originally and I called it like in the trans community, we always used to have this thing that we called Trans 101. It's like, because people would come up and it's not like, we're not as, ubiquitous, I'll say, as we are now. It's like, it was rare to see a trans person. So every time you talk to someone, it'd be like, all right, this is what it means to be trans. This is what I knew. This is this. And there's like a list, and we called it Trans 102 within the community, or Trans 101, like a basic intro to trans. So this is the carryover. And I thought the Chamber of Secrets sound extra tranny, transy, I guess. Not tranny. Tranny's the other word. Transy.
That is so great. That is really great. I didn't realize it. I didn't look at the date and think. I just thought, oh,
yeah, no,
J.K. Rowling joke.
I wasn't trolling her. I swear. Then, I mean, I am now, but I mean, like then, it totally understand.
So yeah, I mean, in something I think you wrote recently, because I saw on Twitter you wrote something recently, and you were saying how we can now. Name off LGB kind of headlining comedians, but how many trans comedians can you list? And so maybe you're going to be. Do you think you're the? I mean, are you the A-list?
Well, for trans people, I'm the A-list, but that's about that's like that's into the Greek letters in our alphabet. But I think so. Like there are a few like Julia Scotti is a trans woman in New York. She'll headline certain clubs and Ian Harvey on the West Coast, one of my friends out there, he'll headline. But when you go to like, especially like the franchise clubs, the ones across the country, like that have like 20 locations and that, you'll never see that. Might see a lesbian comic, possibly a gay comic, but you'll never see a trans. And I mean, like, I think, I'm doing pretty well. I just got past I'm a regular at the Comedy Cellar. So, I mean, and that's pretty much the best comedy club in the country. So, I mean, I feel like I'm there talent-wise. I mean, who knows if people will say, I mean, just look at TV stations. They're still playing to the states that border the Mississippi River. Middle America still controls what goes on the main networks. So we'll see. I don't know. I'm just going to keep, if they don't want me, fine. I don't want them either. They're not the first people to reject me for being trans. So they could join the list if they are.
So, yeah. So I think a lot of your jokes, to me are, or it's not a lot, but some of them are a little self-deprecating, I think. Well, I guess maybe humor just in general is.
For me, for sure. I feel like that 100%. One, it's I'm sure there's some aspect of self-hatred there, but, it's also like I really like, I've always liked comics that were self-deprecating. And like the one thing I hate, when you make fun of yourself, you never have to worry about punching down. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not good, like some comic, like by punching down, I mean, like, some comics will make fun of someone for being a little person, or make fun of someone for being obese, or make fun of someone for being trans. It's like when you make fun of yourself, it's I feel like it's more palatable, and like, especially when you see, I just really hate comics who make fun of someone because they're different. So if I make fun of myself, it just feels right, and it feels like, and I try and talk about being trans in a way that's people like in people can see, like some people will hear it's more relatable the way I say it, hopefully. When I first started, I was in Albany, New York, which not exactly the liberal bastion of the United States. I mean, 10 miles in any direction, there are like Confederate flags, so which is really weird because, we weren't on the north. We were in the north, we weren't in the Confederacy. So I don't know where, it wasn't like a hand-me-down from the grandfather, like they bought this and they hang it, and so, I mean, it's like you had to perform in front of crowds that weren't necessarily liberal, so when you perform in front of a conservative crowd, one that probably have never met a trans person, you have to immediately get them on your side. And then you have to talk about being trans in a way that they'll still find funny, obviously, but also not look at it like, it's like, I'm a person. I have problems like you have problems. Like I have problems with my father. You have problems, and who doesn't have problems with their parents in some way, So it's like, that's what, by cutting my teeth there, I think I learned to talk to a broader audience about these issues at an earlier point. And just the number of people who would come up to me and say, like, wow, I only know trans people from what I see on TV, but you're actually like, yeah, you're just a person. It's really nice to meet you, and, women would hug me afterwards. People would come up to me and say, like, I have a cousin who's trans, this, or one of my friend's daughters is coming out. You think they could reach out to you if they have an issue, and it's really an amazing thing. Cause it's great. As a liberal, I love people who are also liberals, and I love performing in front of those crowds. But there's something that happens when you talk to people who don't necessarily agree with you and get them to understand your point of view. And there was this great quote by Margaret Wheatley who says, like, you can't hate someone whose story you know. And that's sort of my mantra when I try and perform comedy.
That's a good one.
Yeah, thanks. Well, it's hers. So.
But I have a friend who told me this thing that Susan Sontag said, and I haven't actually gone and got the Susan, like, very academic of me to try to quote this when I haven't read the original. Anyway, it was just about Jewish people, like Jewish humor being like a protective mechanism, like to get them the anti-Semites to like or like, don't kill me, I'm funny kind of thing. And
that's interesting.
And my friend thinks that Susan Sontag connects this also with gay humor. I'm not sure, but because obviously I haven't looked at the actual quote. But yeah, so do you think there's I mean, you kind of touched on that a bit with like you're talking to people who maybe aren't accepting or who aren't liberal, and and you're kind of getting them on board, or
Sure, 100%. And I mean, it's still not a safe world for trans people. And I started comedy in 2009. So then even like I said, in Albany, there was a trans woman who was murdered about 5 years earlier in a town next to Albany. So, I mean, part of that, like, I didn't even want to talk about being trans when I first started comedy. All I did was talk about, I would just try and write a clever joke and tell those jokes on stage, whatever that was. And I just never talked about it. And a large part of that was fear. And I think it was when I first came out, it's on stage, I think I did it in a way that was funny, but also, I did it in a way like I didn't want it to sound lectury. Sure, I would love it to tell people why they shouldn't ask about my genitals. I would love to, but as long as I can make it a joke, and I can tell people about how ridiculous the North Carolina law is, but I have to also turn it into a joke. So I think but a lot of that was education, but very much so protection too. Like when I first started, because I didn't want people to know, it's not a good place in America. It wasn't at the time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So have you had any of the kind of things you feared happen, or any of the things you were worried about? Has any,
Never really, like, no one, not physically, like no one's attacked me or anything like that, knock on wood. I did have a couple stalkers, which is interesting. Someone actually sent me an email through my website saying, do you know how easy it is to find out where you live? And then like my landlord said, hey, there was someone creeping around asking about you. We just told them you didn't live here, but stuff but I mean, the only thing that I found, and again, you're never going to see this stuff. No one's going to say it to your face, but I used to tour with a couple of comics, and I remember them telling me like they wanted to bring me on the road to certain comedy clubs, and the owners flat out told them no because of who I was. And they don't do that. Like if they have a headliner coming to a comedy club and that comedy club wants to bring someone along, they always say yes. But in my case, they made an exception and said no. Like those are the only things that, those get to you, like there are doors being shut, but by the same token, there are also doors being open. I get the chance to perform at, like a lot of times I'll go to a trans conference or like just an educational conference, like the TED Talk. I couldn't have done that if I didn't talk about being trans. So there are, you try and take it with a grain of salt. Like some people are never going to be on board this in my lifetime, but if I could swear here, I'd say F them, but
Oh, you can.
Oh,
you
good.
Can swear.
Good. Fuck them. Fuck them all. Fuck. Fuckity fuck. That's it.
Good. You got that on?
Yeah. Okay. Whew. Let me just. It's like wringing out a sponge. Let me get the last fucks out of me. Okay. That was it. That was the last one. But you have to have that attitude. You can't get bitter about you. I'm never going to change the way they think. I could try and make them see my humor as funny, but some people are just, that's it. They're not going to see it that way. And I just move on. There are plenty of places, especially now. I mean, I could be on TikTok. I could be on YouTube. I could be on Twitter. I could be on Instagram. Like no one can shut me up anymore. Like there aren't any gatekeepers like there used to be. So, or as many rather.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but also like in those instances where you've been discriminated against, have you ever wanted to take action in like a kind of political sense? I've heard you describe yourself as not that political.
Yeah. On stage, I'm not. Outside, I'm extremely political. But yeah, I really did. I wanted to burn these places to the ground and on Facebook, not literally. I'm not. I'm not going to confess to attempted arson. But no, I really wanted to write a Facebook letter explaining what happens and explain the clubs. But then I thought, I'm not one. These comics that were performing there told me this in confidence, and I'm not going to out them as people and ruin their potential thing. But also, it's just there's nothing to gain from it, So I pretty much just put them what? Hopefully, I'll be successful enough to say screw you guys when they come apologizing. I'll be like, I don't have to accept your apology. Like learn from it and don't do it again. That's it.
But so just an apology, that's enough.
I mean, what else can you, I mean, honestly, it's, you really have to get to a point where like, if there was like, I don't know, it's really tough for me to say like, I just feel like there's not much point to getting myself worked up over other things, I can't, it's me telling jokes on stage, that's it. And it's a one venue in the country this one night. I can find another place, hopefully. And if I can't, again, it's one night. Like that's not the stuff that bothers me as much as when I see, like these trans bills going on, like aimed at targeting kids. Those are the things that get me completely fired up to the point where I just like will go on a rant. I will go off on people. I mean, like when people want to pass laws so that an 8-year-old can't play soccer with her friends because she's trans. That's the stuff that really like that's less forgivable. When people say like are trying to pass laws saying like you cannot apply puberty blockers to children, like that fires me up like nothing else. But when a comedy club, I try not to get too worked up about that. And they'll never admit it. Let's face it. So.
Yeah. So I know, yeah. So you didn't make jokes. You didn't kind of out yourself at the beginning of your comedy career, and I've heard you say that it was like partly inspired by Jazz Jennings. Is that right?
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know Jazz Jennings, she is a transgender activist and public figure who wrote a children's book called I'm Jazz, and also had a TV show made about her coming out as trans in her teenage years.
I think, yeah, it's weird. There are two things that sort of happened roughly the same time. Like I was about 3 or 4 years in, and like I was doing a show, and like I usually did, and one of the other comics on the show said, I just had a weird conversation with a friend. They just came up to me and said, is Jay still in the closet? And I thought that was weird. That's what she said to me. And immediately I thought like, well, they think I'm hiding it. I can't hide it because there are people, like Jazz Jennings, I think was like, 7 at the time or whatever, was going on the Today Show and her family was getting death threats. She was getting death threats. And I thought, here's this child who's on the front lines of fighting for trans equality. And I'm too afraid, and it's really just, it made me say like, I should be in the front lines protecting people like that. So I became more open, more authentic. And I think, like the comedy was much better too. Because let's face it, it was real. It wasn't like this. I wasn't a character. I was more myself, or at least an amplification of myself. That was definitely better for sure. And what I found interesting though, is like a lot of the same jokes could carry over. But people now, like, it's sort of like they imprinted it as trans material because it was in my act. Like people would say, like I would have jokes about my dad that was one of the first things I would talk about on stage. And they would be like, wow, like all this stuff about your dad because you're trans. That's crazy. And like the jokes are the same. So it could be anything, but immediately it becomes those are trans jokes. Someone said, I can't believe you did an entire 10 minutes on just trans material. That's amazing. And meanwhile, there are only 3 jokes that even mention the word, but she's like, oh, you're in therapy because you're trans. You were Irish Catholic, but you're trans, so it's, I mean, I guess because that's my life, and yes, I'm trans. So when I talk about my life, it's trans, but I mean, just calling them trans jokes is, come on. It was kind of amusing, but also frustrating.
Yeah. Well, but I guess to go back to the kind of self-deprecating thing, do you, because like when I was introducing you and I made this like stupid joke about balls, like I mean, I feel very awkward. Obviously, I felt very awkward about.
No, let's talk about my balls. I'll get them. They're in a jar of formaldehyde under my bed. I'll bring them in. It's I named them. Yeah.
So. Do you worry that it like gives permission to other people to make those jokes?
Yeah, I do to some extent. like I hate when anyone talks about a trans person's genitals when they're not trans, or they're not that person in general. Like you're forgiven, don't worry about it. It's fine. Just the look on your face where, oh my God, why did I write that? Like, that was enough. That was perfect. No,
but no one is listening to this will see my look on my face.
Right.
That's good. You reported.
Right. I reported the awkwardness there, and me just staring out. Keep going, keep digging. But no, I do to some extent. But I also I think I do it in a way like, I'll say like, I hate it when people talk about like people come up. I have a joke about how people would come up to me after my show asking like, do you have a dick? Do you have a dick, bro? All that stuff. And like, it happens a lot. But so I do a joke
about because they're like drunk people.
Right.
They're gonna,
right. And I don't talk about
stupid shit.
Yeah. And I don't talk about it on stage. So no one knows what's down there. And I kind of like that way. I would rather be judged on other things. And I'm sure, like, I've heard people say like, well, Jaye McBride talks about it. Why can't I talk about it? For sure. That's happened with straight people. But, I mean, anytime I have a chance to talk to someone, especially like what's almost cute now is like comics will come up to me and like, hey, is this offensive to trans people? And then run it by me, which is great. It's almost like I'm training them, which is, which that happens more than people thinking they have carte blanche. Although people will come up to me with a stupid dick joke for sure. All the time. Who doesn't love a dick joke except, me? But, it's like all the time. My Facebook will be like lousy with them. Like it'll be littered throughout. There'll be a smattering of dick jokes throughout most of my posts. But
well, I mean, I wasn't like, yeah, I made a ball joke, but I wasn't saying just that material.
No,
like
100%. No. I know. I'm totally.
We're getting a bit sidetracked.
I'm totally giving you a hard time to be a jerk. That's it, because I'm an asshole most in general. So if I have a chance to let that asshole out. It's free.
No, but like there's other I don't know what else it would give permission to joke about, but like I don't know, or like
tranny. I say the word tranny a lot. Like people, in my act, and people think that it's all right to say that. I do worry that some people will feel that they have license to, and I try to be a little careful. Like I said, if I do tell jokes about being using the word tranny, I'll explain why it's bad in a way, or I'll talk about why I can say it but you can, or like stuff like that. And
or just like jokes about like the jokes about they were giving me drinks and these guys at the bar were giving me drinks and they were saying the surprise joke.
Right. I was like,
maybe you want to tell it.
Sure. I was in this bar. These guys had no idea they were buying me drinks for hours, and like I didn't even know what the drinks were. So they just looked at those drinks and said, here, I hope you like surprises. And I said, right back at you, which I think is a great joke. But also that's probably one I should stop telling, but I love it so much. And it gets such great laughs with the straights. The straights love that. Like the liberal crowd, not so much. But, I do. Yes, I do worry. And that's the sort of thing. Like I really have grown to hate the notion of like surprise, it's someone who's transgender. I do really hate that notion. And like I rarely tell that joke anymore, but I think you're on stage sometimes and you get those laughs and you think the joke is like so funny, you keep it, and you don't think about it. You just think, okay, this joke I know will get an applause break, so make sure to put that here. This joke does this. And if I were to really parse out my set, I'm sure I would be very, I would think differently about some of these jokes when someone said, by the way, and people have come up to me at a show. Like there are some jokes that I have stopped telling, for sure, that just, even though they worked, because, times change, things change. Like I used to tell a joke, like I remember I was at a show and like 3 comics before me told rape jokes. So I was like, all right, I'm going to write a joke about, a woman in a bar raping a man or something like that. So anyway, even though like I'm not going to tell it, the joke came out well, but it's like you get to a point like, I don't want to tell rape jokes. Yeah, I hate these assholes for doing it. I'm not going to be the same. I'm not going to do the same. Even if, yes, maybe my intentions were to stick it to them originally, but it's at a point like, I can't tell that joke. I can't. I'm not going to be that person. So I'm sure there are jokes that I stopped telling as, some trans jokes that I stopped telling. Like I know there are, but I guess now that you bring it up, I really should worry about it more because they really do.
Oh God, I don't want to make you feel worried about. You're like, God, no, self-censor, please.
In fact, I'm going to give up comedy now that you mentioned. I quit comedy today. That's the announcement. Thank you for showing. No, you're right. I really should worry about it. God, what's wrong with me?
No, but I think what's interesting about what you're saying is that, like, with a liberal crowd, like this kind of joke does this, and with another crowd it does this, and it just reinforces the idea that humor creates kind of like like you're either in the group that gets the joke or you're not in it's very kind of, it can be very divisive, I guess,
right,
or very kind of and compartmentalizing of people into kind of groups.
100%. So, and it's like the liberal crowds I perform in front will be the first ones to come up to me and say, like, you shouldn't say the word tranny. Like cis people will tell me that. Like trans people are fine with it. Like they probably say it too. Like, but the cis people are like, you know what? Because like they shouldn't. Other people should when they hear that word. I don't want them thinking that they can use it. And so it definitely does happen. But I also feel like it's my word. I think like that's like the only advantage to transitioning is when I tell people you get to say that word. Like that's it. You lose friend and if you're a Republican, sports. Those are the only two things. But no, but it is different with the crowds, and you do see things like that. But also there's part of me, like believe me, I would love nothing more than to be the sort of person who goes on Rachel Maddow every night to talk seriously about trans issues. But I'm not. That's not me, and I'm a very joking person, so
so you would love to be that person?
I think so. I think I would like. I think I would like that. I think I would like to just to be like, here we have an expert. Right between. I think that would be fun. I think that would be cool. No pressure to be funny, and just. But the truth is, like the only way that I see that, people who would never otherwise listen to trans people. It's the only way that I can get them to do it.
Right.
And so it's plus too old to start journalism. So
you're never too old to start something new.
Right.
The children's party thing is really.
The birthday party, you're getting that cake.
Middle of the day.
You get those cake
so
coma, the frosting comas kicking in.
Where was I going? I was going somewhere.
Another birthday party. No.
Yeah, I gotta go.
You were talking about compartmentalizing crowds a little bit before.
Yeah. So when you do your jokes, some of them obviously, like you said, they're about. You have a lot of jokes about your relationship with your father, and I've heard you say jokes about like your brother disowning you when you transitioned. Is that all true? Or
the brother part absolutely is true. My dad, now he actually passed away before I transitioned, but he would not have been okay with it. It's like he didn't kick me out of the house, although he did stop speaking to me for an entire summer. So I mean, the tough relationship absolutely is true. But here's a story about like how I knew how my dad felt and how I knew, like at the time I didn't really know what trans was, growing up. Like it wasn't, again, all over the place. So I mean, like, but occasionally you'd see like a talk show or something they'd see a story somewhere about a trans person, and there was this like nightly show, and they had these female impersonators, is what they called them at the time, which are usually like people who were transitioning, and but they also had drag queens. So and it's this place that had female impersonators and drag queens. It was on TV. My brothers were there. They were doing God knows what in the back, like. guys throwing a baseball at each other's genitals or something. And but I'm looking at this like, and I'm probably like 10, 12 or something. I'm like, oh my God, that's what I am. That's me. That's what I can do for like that's it. And it was just such a brilliant eureka moment. Then my dad walks in, looks at the TV, looks at us, and says, "If any of you turn out like that, I'll kill you." And
whoa.
And I mean, like that's the truth, 100% true story. So that was my father, and I mean, I do tell jokes to make it funny and get the point across that I didn't get along with my father. But yeah, that's him.
Yeah. So, and is there anything about your life that you wouldn't joke about, like that you wouldn't turn into material, that you wouldn't use as material?
There's something like if I would talk about anything as long as I could make it funny. But there's like, some things I just can't do it. Like I have a tough, like, well, I was sexually assaulted when I was like 12. Yeah, 12 was a big year for me. I found out I was trans. I was sexually assaulted. It was a big year. But it was at summer camp and
puberty too. So
yeah,
that's like
it was pretty brutal. Like I had to testify in court and of course they looked at it like, oh, boys will be boys, because they were older kids that did it. So they had like 6 months probation or something. But like that's something I just can't find a way to talk about on stage, and part of me doesn't want to, like even now, just saying it now, it's almost uncomfortable, a little bit, because it's something that, again, people who watch my comedy would never know that. But yeah, so I mean, there absolutely are things that I wouldn't talk about, but I think that if I can make something.
A few years, sorry, it just reminded me a few years ago. Sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, no, don't worry about it.
A few years ago, I think it might have been 2017. Someone won the Edinburgh Comedy Award for a show that was about. It was a male comedian. It was a show about having been sexually harassed or sexually assaulted, I think. Mm-hmm. And I can't remember the name of the person who did it, but I mean, I don't think it was a very funny show.
Right.
But it was still like part of the comedy.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar with that. Or
if I saw the comic's name, I'd be like, I know them.
Okay.
Especially,
I just can't think of the name.
Yeah. Especially if it's an American comic, I'd be like, I absolutely know what that is.
No, I think he's British. But I don't
gross.
know.
No, just kidding. I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
I'm gonna re-record this part with me saying the right name. The show I'm talking about is actually by Richard Gadd, the stand-up comic, who did a show called Monkey See, Monkey Do, which in 2016 won the Edinburgh Comedy Award. It would be better to know. Anyway, whatever.
If only there were a magical device that could tell us the answers to things.
If only there was.
I know. What do we do? No, it's so... So, I mean, I feel like if I were... like a one-person show, I think is a perfect venue to talk about stuff like that, Yeah. Because a one-person show, you can have dramatic things, but, if you're on stage, like I think that there was one I did talk about briefly. I tried doing this on stage, and it was sad, but I think I was able to bring it back. I talked about how trans people are more likely, trans people who don't have acceptance of their parents are like 13 times more likely to attempt suicide. And I attempted suicide when I was younger. So I did start to talk about that on stage with a joke, but then it got to then I thought the joke wasn't that great. And really it's hard to talk about, that stuff is still hard to talk about. And if I probably would if I thought I would feel much better about it. But I also feel like after a while, you're just, reciting words at this point. So it's not really as profound and cathartic as it would be in a one-person show. So, if I thought I could make a great joke that I would love telling, I absolutely would. But it's just stuff like that. It's tough. It's hard,
Yeah.
Boy, it's really hard to tell I'm a comedian talking about being molested out and my suicide attempts. This is what a fun life. What a fun life. Let's talk about my dad beating the hell out of me. Let's just go on. Let's talk about something else. I don't know. We have cancer. I have a dead mom too. You want to talk? Let's go there. Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm depressing you. You had so many birthday parties you went to. You're such a festive day, and I'm ruining it.
No, it's fine.
Okay.
It's fine. It's good. Thank you for being so.
Of course.
Yeah. So that's interesting. So being funny obviously is very important to you.
Right. Yes. I think that's one of the things that came up in my family. Yet we had to be funny, smart, and good at sport, or at least we're rewarded in some way or whatever. Like being smart, having good grades and being good at sports were two of the things that were measurable. But being funny seemed to be one of those immeasurable things. So that all of us were good at. All of us excelled at being funny.
Right. So in birth order wise, where are you in your family?
I'm number 2. I'm the middle child.
Oh, you're the middle child.
Yeah. So
okay.
of course
that explains it all.
Right. Exactly. Middle children, come on. Tranny central. That's sweet spot.
Yeah, this is the thing I'm going to keep trying to get back to, which is, right, you make a joke about, I only transitioned so that I could play women's golf.
That was a lot funnier when I started telling it 5-6 years ago. Now that people actually believe it, it's that trans women are better at sports. It feels... that's one of those that I'll probably have to rethink. Before Trump, all these jokes were goofy and could never possibly come true. Like I would tell, and then Trump, like I remember I used to tell a joke about like, it's kind of a long story. It's about how Republicans would hit on me and the way they would inevitably send a dick pic and how they would always like grab it really hard, like they're putting their like they're flexing, like they're showing off their machine gun or something. And I said they grab it like they're like they just caught it trying to sneak across the border. And at the time, there wasn't a huge immigration policy, but people were still like blaming Obama as being Kenyan and when they would joke, it was almost bluster, people talking about the border. But then it became real. Detention camps became real, and it became a tragedy. So those jokes just didn't work as well. And the same with I only did it to play women's golf. It's like, it's tough because people will think like that I'm on the side that trans athletes have an advantage, and honestly, like I don't care about adult athletes, trans or cis. I don't care at all. My biggest thing with any of those bills, though, it's like all these bills that they pass, they're going to affect kids, and that's where I'm like you can't tell me that a 7th grade child is like male or female is going to have advantage over someone else. You know what I mean? Especially with like puberty blockers.
It's actually I mean, it's a well-known fact. I think that. Yeah, there's no difference. I mean, at that stage, there's no difference.
Right,
anyway.
right.
I mean,
so, I mean, like the fact that it became this again, like this is the year where they're going after like trans people. So now it feels like, it feels hard because it's almost like I don't want people to think I'm on the wrong side of that, And
yeah.
And
I guess where I wanted to go with it was just like about comedy being a quite masculine field, or at least traditionally. Like obviously, it's one that it's a bit. I feel like what century is it that we're calling it masculine and like it's shocking to find a woman who's funny or whatever.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's extremely male dominated, 100%. Most. Like usually when a comedy club, I forget, there was someone who's doing like a study about comedy clubs, not necessarily in the city, but comedy clubs outside the city. One of the ways that comics make money, they tour the country, and so they'll go to different comedy clubs in like Topeka or Indianapolis, go all across, and there are hundreds of comedy clubs. Someone was looking at just how many comics that headliners were female versus how many were male, and it was something like 87 to 90% were male, and the rest were female. But then they'd have like a ladies' night on a Wednesday where they pay everyone peanuts, basically. And that was their extent where comedy clubs would justify like what they did on weekends. And it's 100% male dominated. And, you do hear like...
So you could have done better if you
I know, right? What was I thinking? I have the worst guidance counselor, right. If I were an engineer, no problem. But no, 100% is a male dominated field. And, but it's, the good thing is, again, that's something that's changing. And also in the city, I'm very lucky because it's like at places like the Comedy Cellar, they probably book more women than most clubs. Like there'll be times where like the lineup will be half men, half women. It just works out that way because they book funny people and they put people on based on whether or not they're funny. So there's still more male comics. And I think a lot of that is like when guys hang out together, this is me talking for both sides of the plate here, having that experience. Okay. This is some of the secret, like they don't know that women's bathrooms are nice, whereas we don't know this about guys. But guys like hang out and joke with each other all the time. And that's like to be a funny guy that's fun to hang out with. That's huge. But women don't really, they're sort of like, they like to, it feels like women like to hang out with people and have fun with them, but not necessarily be like the joke telling sort the way guys tend to be, And I think a lot of that, like guys, because of that, as guys progress through comedy, they start to write jokes more with each other and they bounce ideas off with each other. Whereas when there are less women comedians, there aren't those same groups necessarily. And I think that's how a lot of it starts. Or that could be me totally full of shit.
No, that's exactly what I was like kind of thinking about because I had a comedian called Martin Willis on one of my live versions of the talk show. Cool. And he was talking about, he's bisexual and he actually came out on stage. Like he came out on stage on the comedy stage before he told his friends and stuff like that. But he was talking, he thinks that, he's written an article for kind of a newspaper here about about comedy, and it was like around the time of like Time's Up and Me Too and stuff like, and just about how comedy is this very. He talks about comedy being about this this masculine arena and this kind of this thing that happens between men like jockeying to be like the funny, the funniest, that have the most attention. So I asked him about like, what's the alternative to that kind of masculine paradigm for comedy? Mm-hmm. And he says, the alternative is maybe improv being, and it's not funny at all. Like,
right.
His
improv
assessment of it.
Sorry. Improv and sketch 100% it's like, more like people working together. And, I think women are drawn to that more. I don't know. I don't think improv is not funny. I mean, I guess it can be, but yes, and
yeah, I think it can be.
Yes, definitely. And I also no. It's an improv joke. That's if anyone's taken an improv class, you'll be dying. But for the other 99.8% of you, no, it 100% is, and I think guys tend to be more comfortable if they're on a long road trip with a guy or with their partner, so if they're married to someone, they'll go on the road with their wife or whatever. But when they go on the road with someone else, they'd rather have a guy, which means the comedy club now has a headliner and a feature, both guys. And that leaves just the host spot, the least paying spot. So I think there is a lot of that. And I think a lot of it isn't intentionally. Like, I think guys are, people booking men more because they think men are funny and they don't give women a chance. And some of that's unintentional. But there is still definitely, like, there are guys, like, you can see it. If you go to a club and you'll see them, laugh, it's like they give male comics the benefit of the doubt. When a guy goes on stage, they're like, all right, I assume this guy's going to be funny. And women don't have that. So, like, when I go on stage, you can almost see people like guys, not women, like sit back with their arms folded with this like I dare you to make me laugh thing. That's still, and it's, usually those are the guys I like hit on to make uncomfortable, which is the best possible revenge because you should see them squirm. But I think people have that. So women have to dig themselves out of a hole before they even begin. And that's why I think Like the women that are funny, the women that are great at comedy are really great at comedy, you know?
Right. I think I've actually experienced that myself. Like, I don't do comedy, but I do like performance art, and like I've performed in front of audiences and had like men staring at me, like sort of. You just could tell they just wanted to roll their eyes at me, sort of thing.
Right.
Just like, what's up with that guy?
Yeah.
Like, why is he giving me that?
I know. It's like
shitty response.
It's like guys used to say, like, I don't like female comics because all they do is talk about their periods. And I'm like, really? How many of you listen to? Like, you know, I mean, are you an expert? You know, because it doesn't, you know, yeah, I'm sure that every woman has a joke, but that doesn't mean you're going to hear it all the time. But they really, like, I don't know. I think some...
Is that why you felt you had to make a period joke?
I do have one. Have you heard it?
I know you do.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. Oh wait, I have you're talking about my grandmother having 10 kids. That one.
Oh no,
the other one where it was like
right. There's
there are
that
a couple.
One,
then I talk
the one about like I've seen a lot of period commercials.
Yes. Well, I worked with all women at the time. I was working at a reproductive rights group, and it was just me, me and 10 other women. So they would talk about periods all the time. So I just thought it was funny when I'm watching like this 90-Day Fiance or something, like I understand periods. I've seen tampon commercials. It's a lot of like hiking, kayaking, horseback riding, all that stuff when you have your period. I know, just because the commercials are so goofy, but
and yoga, yeah.
And yoga, right. I haven't told that one in a while, but I'll break it out. You're reminding me of all this material.
Oh, that's good.
I'm glad I'm recording it.
I did do my brushing up before. I spent some time.
Oh, wow. That must have been terrible. Hearing a lot of the same jokes over and again.
That and the children's party.
Right.
Been...
you should have just played the comedy at the children's party and, two birds with one stone.
Good. Yeah, yeah. Actually, that book by Jazz, I'm Jazz, I know that book because, I know who Jazz Jennings is because my daughter picked that book out from the library here in the public library here. And, because it's so girly, the cover and everything. Oh, right. It's great because we talk about it all the time. We talk about trans and non-binary stuff, and it's great.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah. It's, people think it's indoctrinating, trans culture, but it's actually just like, people might, this happens. This is this happens. It's something to write about, So. Yeah.
Yeah.
And for the trans kids that are out there, maybe this will be something that their parents can read and understand to them, So.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, about your relationship to femininity and masculinity. Mm-hmm. I don't know how to formulate the question.
Yeah.
Make it so. I don't know what. Yeah.
Okay. I'm right in the middle. Hey, half and half. Oh, hey, thing.
I know you make that joke, but no, seriously. Is masculinity toxic?
God, yeah. Right. I think everyone can accept that this masculinity is like this angry. All I picture is like these angry, raging guys like talking like why you I think my relationship with femininity is very weird. It's like I think about it almost like the way like this bear with me. Like I remember hearing a story about like someone who I was watching someone who was wrongfully accused of murder. They were in prison for like 30 years and let out. And they were talking about how when they got out of prison, every time they got to a doorway, they would wait, because in prison, someone has to buzz you to go through. Even now that they were out of prison, they still stopped and wait, because someone's got to buzz me through. And it took them a second to rethink everything. And I feel a lot of growing up, I was taught femininity bad. Don't dress that way. Don't hold your hands that way. Don't hold books that way. Don't walk that way. Don't cross your legs that way. And all this stuff was just like, it was almost like these are like my doors that weren't buzzed. So expressing my femininity is very difficult. And let's face it, I'm 6 feet tall. So it's, I'm not the delicate flower that I may appear on Zoom. So it's tough to express femininity as necessarily for me. The clothes are built for different types. But the feminine spirit and I think feminism in general is I love feminism in general. And I think like, especially once you start, having transitioned, I think I probably, if I didn't transition, I would have turned into a toxic male. I definitely would have let that anger fester and bubble over. But by transitioning, it's like you really learn empathy, I think, when you transition. And you learn like about, like, oh, women do have these problems and these are the things that do happen. And I know you weren't talking about feminism necessarily, but femininity. But
I wanted to ask about that as well. So that's good.
Oh, okay. But I mean, like and I think you learn that these about like even though I worked at like I was talking about with a reproductive rights group, it's like I can't have an abortion. There's no, obviously that's not a thing. But by the same token, there are women who might need one, and you learn empathy for those people. And then you see that. And you also see the great thing about living in New York and going out more is like there isn't one way to express femininity. So it's just what works for you, And I feel like I never wanted to be like the most, flowery, feminine, lavender, flower, purple bows in my hair, stuff like that was never my intent. I just wanted to pass and not get hassled. And then I started comedy and realized, no, I'm going to get hassled the rest of my life because of it. But, it's...
I know, so there's some irony there. It's like you wanted to just pass and like...
Right. Well, that's another story, but that's another tangent where it just... Because, I was working at retail jobs and as a guy, I was never turned down for a promotion, like ever. It was something like 9 promotions in my glorious retail career, illustrious retail career. And then I transitioned and never received a promotion. And you realize like, well, maybe, all right, you don't love this anyway, but you do love comedy. Maybe you should try and pursue comedy. So that's where that came from. But,
oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So it's tough. It's tough for me to describe like all, now I'm rambling. Now I'm just, I feel like I wasn't prepared I didn't read the book, and the teacher just asked me a book report question right now, and I'm fumbling, like, based on the cover.
Sorry.
Like, well, there's this old guy who's fishing.
I don't even remember what the question was now, to be honest.
Mission accomplished. No, you're asking me to describe relationship with masculinity and femininity.
Right, yeah. I actually think what you said was really great about the work you've been doing for reproductive rights. I mean, there's... Obviously, even though you yourself wouldn't ever need an abortion, like it's about like autonomy and sort of having it's like there's a connection. I mean, like having the right to make decisions about one's own body, and so there's
100%. And what I also found was going to working with this group, we would go to independent clinics. Like people in the United States, Planned Parenthood's the most well known, but the independent clinics are the ones, they don't get a lot of funding, but they do most of the work. And to see these places, they would also have resources at almost every single one where trans people could go, where for like hormone therapy, for therapists in general. It's like, so these, it's almost like we had this common ground without me knowing it, like people would go there for prep, for AIDS prep. So it was more interlocking than I realized. And it makes sense. I mean, the people that are against abortion are against gays and lesbians, and they're against trans people, and, and all sorts of things. all of us are abominations. We're all one here.
Yeah. Another uplifting note.
Right. Wow. So my comedy is dark. Just keep that in mind.
Oh yeah, I liked hearing that you practice your material on Twitter. Like it helps you to be brief. Mm-hmm. I thought that was a good tip because I'm kind of a verbose person. Like, and I'm not really into being on social media in general, but I just thought that was a nice kind of way of thinking about it. Like, oh, it could be an opportunity for brevity.
100%. And that's the old saying in comedy, like levity is brevity. So when you keep a joke short, and then as someone who I'd love a well-tailored joke, like one that's just like, each joke has like its own beat, almost. It has like a rhythm. It has like almost like a poem needs like a certain number of, the, I don't know, iambic count or whatever. But each beat has like, so when you talk about jokes, you really need to get it right. And if you can cut it down or in some cases add to it. I remember adding an adjective that just turned a joke around and made it that much better. But I mean, by going on Twitter, you're forced to. You only have 288 characters, and it used to be 144 characters. So you're forced to really look at a joke, look at what's necessary and what isn't, and you find, if I were to tell a joke like, so there's this chicken, and he's standing on a road, and he's thinking like, why am I gonna, look, what's on the other side of this road? So I go and I keep wondering like, why is this chicken there? Like, what's this chicken gonna do? Meanwhile, the joke is, why did the chicken cross the road? But I mean, like, you really cut it down, and it worked. The classics never die. That's my opener. And but things like that, you realize like when you write a joke, you have to trim the fat, so to speak.
Yeah. Oh, so this is what I want to ask you, which is what I was trying to ask you before about, what's off limits or,
and I screwed it up.
Having material that's about sorry, what?
And I screwed it up.
No, you didn't.
Right.
I just didn't follow through with what I was really wanting to ask about, which is, when you make jokes about your kind of life experiences and then you do those jokes over and over and over again, does it, like, you talked about like doing a one woman show and maybe being an opportunity for catharsis, but like, yeah, does it help to do the comedy? Like, or how does it impact you, like your life and your kind of way of being in the world, or your kind of way of thinking about your life experiences, or yeah.
It really, I think it does. I think it. I think like when you first tell a joke on stage and stuff, it's the problem with comedy is that it's all, so much of it's based on other people's reactions to it. So I could like a joke, but if no one laughs, then it's not a good joke. So when I tell these things, when I talk about my family or my brother or things like that, or just like what it's like dating. It doesn't really help in the moment necessarily when I tell it on stage, but a lot of times people coming up after the show and talking about it with me, like a lot of people will ask me, like, is that true? Did this happen? I'll be like, yeah, it really happened. Like that joke with my brother, I said, I actually sell those cards now, so like where I say like, after you disowned me.
Oh, right.
Right. He had a child. I sent him a greeting card, said, congratulations, it's a boy for now. And that's like, so I actually made a greeting card. It's I think it's that like just talking to people, and you sort of like, cement the fact that, sometimes in life you pick your families too, you don't, I lost a brother, but I also gained countless of other people who, are huge fans, huge supporters of me. So that's where I think I feel that talking about this stuff helps. And I quite honestly, I think like if I talked about like being abused as a child, I think if I did, I think there would be people who would share similar stories, and I'm sure that might help. I'm not there yet, but, I just think that's the sort of thing that, it's one of the, again, it's like a common thread that you find with some people, and, straight, trans, whatever, that some people have different relationships with their family, and they can look at things and be like, oh, okay. What I really like about that, though, is that people are shocked to hear that families disown trans people, and it happens all the time. So that feels better, I think, letting people know that and just talking with people.
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of surprised that people would be shocked by that. I don't know.
Yeah, but no, it happens. It happens. Like,
I mean, like, it seems obvious.
Right. That's what I thought. I thought people would be like, yeah, of course. Like, parents kick out their trans kids. The one thing that I do talk about on, like, the other good, like, I was never in conversion therapy, but I tell jokes saying that I was. And I do that because it's another interesting conversation starter after a show. And someone could be like, conversion therapy, that really happened? And people in the crowd might be like, they might be like, really? People do that? People do. It's like, yeah, it happens all the time. And some states are still trying to make it happen even more, So that's that's one of the few jokes where it never actually happened in my life, but it's such a great thing to bring to people's attention that I'll leave it in there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So have you ever like bombed or been heckled or like
all the time
in a way that really threw you?
All the time. Like all the time. It used to. I mean, obviously it hasn't happened recently, but I think everyone, knock on wood. But I think everyone, if a comedian tells you they've never bombed, then they don't know what they're talking about. They're delusional. But yeah, it happens. I remember once this bachelorette party, which is, it's a death knell for any comedy show. If there's a bachelorette party in the crowd, forget it. You should ask for your refund now, because they're usually drunk. This is like the last stop, and they're just like ready to go. And they just wouldn't stop talking. And I said like something just so mean at them, like just shut the hell up. Look, no one wants to hear, and it wasn't funny. It was just being a jerk, me just going after them. And then like, people would be like, why don't you just do your stupid jokes? And I was like, oh man, it was just, it was such one of those things. Like they were talking the whole time, and I couldn't concentrate. I wasn't doing well anyway. Then I did this, and there was no coming back from it. So I got off stage, just buried my head, and like, all right, next time, just don't talk, don't engage, just ignore them, treat them like they're not there. But I mean, you can learn from every time you bomb, hopefully, but I don't know. And first,
but it's never been like a result of like trans material or anything like that.
No, I mean I have it.
Or are there certain parts of the country that you wouldn't go to because I don't know.
Well, ever since Trump got in, I feel like we're so much more polarized. I would be a little frightened to go to any, to any place like in the rural America, but most like college towns or cities I'll still do, but before that I think I could have gone anywhere. I would have said no, but over the last 4 years, yeah, there probably are. But the only thing about being trans, like I've had people like walk out of shows, like when I say, by the way, I'm trans, and then like I remember one, it was like a college student too, in the middle of some community college in upstate New York, just said, nope, not listening to this. And I was like, I don't know. What can you do, though? Am I going to let that bother me the rest of my life, or just,
So, yeah. But do you say you're pretty thick-skinned when it comes to it?
You have to be. I think I used to be this thick-skinned. I tell people now that my spirit animal is the armadillo because of, ever since I transitioned, I feel like I have to be. I think I started getting that way 6 months into my transition. Before I was doing comedy or anything, I was working in a bookstore, and I was still uncomfortable. I'm sure I dressed terribly, but like someone I remember, like these kids kept pointing at me, laughing at me, and then going behind a bookshelf, and I just got so broken up over it. And it's just like I went into the back and started to cry, and just like then I mean, after a while I started thinking like, wait a second, you're letting your life be dictated by the thoughts of kids, running around. Like, this is going to happen a lot more. And then I think, I didn't literally have this conversation with myself, but, well, sort of. But it's just, so I think eventually you do get thicker skin. I think, originally the goal is like, the goal was to never have to talk about being trans, just have people say, oh, you're a woman. That's it. That's all there is to it. Like the Sneetches and Dr. Seuss, you get a star taken off, you get a star put on, one or the other, just boom. And it's done. But as you find out that the reality that it doesn't work out that way, or you have someone like misgender you, someone misgender you on purpose. Someone will say yeah, whatever, you're still a man. You have to, it's all this stuff that tore me up. When the first year of my transition happens once a month now on Twitter, so it's like you get to that point, you really have to, for your own sanity. And, so yeah, it's, I've come a long way, I guess, and I don't think thick skin's a bad thing to have. But it just takes a while to grow. That's all. It takes a while to get that thick hide.
So you mentioned like not dressing so well. What do you mean by that?
Well, you have to learn how to dress. It's like you learn how to do your makeup and stuff. When you go out and working in public, I couldn't just go out as I say this. It's hysterical that I even say this now, but at the time I thought like, oh, I have to wear makeup every day. Obviously, women's clothes, but then you find some women's clothes fit you better than others, and then you realize like,
Do you wear makeup every day?
No. That's just it. That's almost comical now. Like I would go to CVS in my pajamas and a sweatshirt every day. No, I don't wear makeup every day. I don't think I've worn like my makeup bag had dust on it. I wear it on stage and I wear it for podcasts. So that's why my lashes look so luscious today. No, I never wear it. It's ridiculous. Like I am the biggest slob. Like I'm lucky if I can find a bra in my room, let alone wear one that day. But at the time working retail, I thought like, oh, this is what I have to do. I don't want to stick out, so I want to dress right. Yeah, but then the body types being so different, I realized quickly that like, all right, you can't wear a dress because you don't have a waist, and your waist is in a different spot than women, so it's not going to fit right, and it's kind of look silly. Whereas if you, in some pants, you can't do the same skinny leg because you don't have a butt, you don't have an ass, but you have broad shoulders. So I mean, like with me, I thought like there's certain ways to dress that are more flattering, instead of just picking stuff off the rack. No, but it's almost comical now thinking about it. Just like I don't what was I thinking? I wore matching socks. Well, look at me. But now like, and I think when I stopped working retail is when the makeup was like, not today. I could put it on, or I could sleep 15 more minutes. So we'll take the sleep.
Yeah.
And
so that was more about like leaving retail. But what about like has being a performer changed like how you are in everyday life, or how's it impacted your kind of?
I guess a little. I'm sure it has a little bit. I mean, you're first of all, you realize just how terribly retail people are treated, but moving to comedy, it's just I don't know. Like I feel like I have to get more dressed up on stage. Just I always, like, my personal opinion about comedy, like I used to hate it when guys would show up in shorts and a t-shirt, like I hate, someone's paying money to see you. The least you do is dress as nicely as they are, which probably sounds like my mom, I'm sure. Like what are you wearing? Are you wearing clean underwear? What are you doing? What are you wearing? Just come on, comb your hair. But I think like in general now I do look at things a little differently. Like I think before I would never look at it like now I remember seeing a dead rat on our street and also a syringe, and immediately I thought, all right, how can I turn that into a joke? And that comedy mind just did that. But I think because it's so much more of a male dominated field in comedy, I think I was a little more shy at first, but now I don't know. It's like now I don't mind. I feel like I've proven myself, and I don't have to hide anymore. I feel like I'm more confident because now, having talked about being trans so much on stage, I'm not hiding that I'm trans anymore. In retail, I didn't want people to know I was trans. I basically just wanted to hide. I wanted people to look at me as a female employee. Now I don't care. Like, I'm gonna tell you I'm trans anyway. You might as well guess. You go ahead. You might as well check it out now. So I'm definitely more open personally as well as professionally because of that. And I think that's a good thing. And I think like that goes along with like, no, I'm not wearing makeup today. What do I care if someone thinks I'm trans? I am, it's so, yeah, I think that's a good thing.
I haven't heard any of your jokes about dating and stuff. I don't
tell them as often because the truth is I don't really date anymore. I'm terrified of dating. So I just, I would tell jokes about dating because I think people, I would try and meet guys online.
Why are you terrified of dating?
What? I don't know. Like, I'm definitely more. I'm definitely bi at this point. Like, I think transitioning, you open up your sexuality a little more. But I'm probably more attracted to guys. And something about like here's how bad I am at dating. If I'm online and then I see a message from someone, I shut off the the program. Like, I don't want to listen. I can't talk to it. It's tough for me to think about a relationship when, having such a terrible notion of my own body and like looking at my body. I don't, when you don't like the body you're born in, why would you want to be like, all right, I'm going to get naked in front of this person now? And it's
right.
So that part, it's tough,
I feel like a lot of, again, I think that's fairly, I don't know.
I think women feel that too, 100%. This isn't a trans thing for sure.
Yeah.
But I just feel like I don't, I don't know. One of these days. And then you don't know who you're going to get online. You don't know the pressure of a first date, all that stuff. Sometimes it's easier to just, yeah.
Right. Well, because now it's well, I don't know. Yeah. Now everything's limited to meeting people. It's not like you're going to, now things are opening up again. So potentially you could meet somebody in real life.
Right. Maybe.
Does anyone do that anymore?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. And the other thing about it's like I have to find someone who is okay openly dating a trans person, and it's very hard. Like most guys don't, it's. I assume anyway. I shouldn't say most guys. I'm sure there are a lot of good, but a lot of guys just want it to be like a dirty little secret, Like I get offered thousands of friends with benefit requests, since I transitioned, but that's not really my thing. I'm not a sex toy, At least not a very good one, am I right? It's terrible.
So yeah, that was not nice. That was not a nice joke.
I know. I'm so mean to myself. I really need to get over it.
I think that might be all my questions. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Of course.
It's been really wonderful speaking to you.
No,
thank you for being so open and yeah.
Oh, no, thank you. This is
candid.
I appreciate you working around my the time schedule, being in Great Britain and all, and your birthday parties. So, does your child have a British accent?
I have two of them, and they do. Actually, they go in and out, but they're mostly they sound British.
I was just curious how that worked.
Actually, some people think I sound British. Like my brother is always like on the phone with me. Say that again in American. Like he's just, especially when I ask questions, the intonation.
Oh, right.
He's like, say that again, or like I use expressions, and he's like, well, I have no idea what that means.
Bob's your uncle? I don't understand. What are you talking about? It's funny.
Yeah.
So.
But anyway, so I hope that you. I'm looking forward to seeing your career take off, and you being the A-list trans woman comedian that the world needs.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I really appreciate it. This is a fun interview. So.
Oh, good. I'm glad it was fun. Yeah, it was fun for me too.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah. Super. So that was the end of my interview with Jaye McBride for this podcast. However, if you'd like to hear and see more of Jaye McBride and I, please head over to Instagram to my IGTV channel, which is under the handle The Oriana Fox. And you can find a recording of a live interview I did with Jaye after doing the podcast interview. And I asked her a few follow-up questions Specifically, I wanted to know more about her relationship to masculinity because we glided over that point quite quickly in this interview. So if you enjoyed this, you'll definitely enjoy the next one. So do head over to Instagram to the Oriana Fox IGTV channel.
Next time on Multiple.
And while you're there, you'll notice that there's also an interview with the artist Susan Butler, who happens to be the guest next time on Multiple O's. And the situation is reversed. So with Jaye, I spoke to her first for the podcast and secondly for Instagram Live. But with Susan, it's the other way around. I spoke to her first on IGTV and then subsequent to that recorded the podcast interview. And the reason I did that was because, well, she is a really interesting artist and we had lots of things to talk about. We talked about mostly on the original IGTV interview, we speak about her debut novel called Signet and the different themes and topics that informed the book, such as climate change and the racial empathy gap and, wanting to depict groovy old ladies that are different from how they're normally depicted, and lots of other really interesting things. And also, the book is based on the Hans Christian Andersen story, The Ugly Duckling, and we didn't get a chance on that interview to really discuss our mutual interest in The Little Mermaid, a different Hans Christian Andersen story, which Susan and I are both kind of a little obsessed with, and we're really interested in all the different versions and variations, including the Disney version and the Hollywood movie Splash. And so, because that interview wasn't long enough to discuss that shared interest, we decided to continue it on the podcast. So that's what you have to look forward to next time on Multiple O's.
Time on Multiple O's. Oh, 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 oh.
So yeah, the O Show and its spin-off podcast is spinning off into all sorts of various media, and you can access it in many different ways, not just the podcast, but via Instagram and via YouTube. So please do check that out and subscribe. Thanks again for listening. And I hope that you're working on your unconditional self, other, and life acceptance. It's really important because I know you probably are thinking, I don't want to accept somebody who's been a jerk to me or accept something that's unfair and unjust in our world. But the thing is, you'll find, I hope, that you're a lot better at responding to those adversities if you accept them first of all. It's important to be flexible like that because we're all just fallible human beings.